In this video, I'm going to go through how to create a line graph with error bars in SPSS. So here we're seeing our sample data of perceived exertion ratings provided by 30 different research participants, half of which are male and the other half are female, at these 4 different levels of contraction intensity. And make note that the far left column under participant are just coded values as identifiers for different research participants. So to make this graph, I'm going to go to Graphs, and as I indicated, I want a line graph, so I'm going to click Line, and I'm going to click the first option. I'm just going to make a simple line graph collapsed across all 30 participants. And the data in chart options, I want the middle one here where it says summaries of separate variables, and that's exactly what I want here. I don't want groups of cases, but I want the separate variables. So I'm going to click this box here, or that circle, and I'm going to hit Define. Now here is where I put in my variables. So I want RPE 10, 20, 30, and 40. So I'm just going to click the first one. I'm going to hold the Shift key down on my keyboard, and I'm going to click the last one, and I'm going to pull those over to Line Represents. And as you can see here, the default is that SPSS will compute the average value at RPE 10, RPE 20, 30, and 40 separately. There's also an option to change the statistic where one could plot the median, the mode, the number of cases, so on and so forth. We have a number of options, but I want the mean of the values. So I can either continue or just hit cancel. The options, well, before I get to options, let me go to titles, and this is where I can place a title above my graph. And so I'm just going to type in all uppercase figure 1, and I'm just going to call this perceived exertion ratings at different contraction intensities, and I'm going to continue. Now the options is where we can add our error bars. So I click options, and I want to display error bars. So when I check this box, I'll have 3 different options. I can put the 95% confidence interval, the standard error, or the standard deviation, and I'm going to go ahead and put the standard deviation, and the default here is that Excel will put a multiplier of 2, and I don't want that. I only want to plot 1 standard deviation for my error bars. And I hit continue, and I don't need these other options, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And we have our graph here. So here we have our title up on top, and we have our graph depicting the mean and the associated error bars across RPE 10, 20, 30, and 40 with a label that the error bars represent plus minus 1 standard deviation. If I want to make any modifications to this graph, I just need to double click anywhere on the graph, and I'm going to do that right here, and a new window will open up. What I often want to do is get rid of these horizontal grid lines, and so there is an option up here that says hide grid lines, or we can select it under the options category where it says hide grid lines, and this is what we have here. So I need to change the title for the y-axis from mean to perceived exertion, and to do that I click on the word on the existing title, then I click on it one more time, and I don't double click, I just click once. And here I can actually use my keyboard and type in perceived exertion, and I hit enter, and that's my new label. And there are a wide range of other options we can apply here to modify our graph for presentation purposes. One example is the numbers here along the y-axis are pretty small visually, so I just need to click once over any of the numbers, and under auto I can just play around with this, and I'm just going to go at a font size of 14, and that looks pretty good to me, so I'm just going to leave it at 14. But that overwhelms the label for perceived exertion, so I'm going to click on that once, and I'm going to come back up to auto, and I might want to make that 16. And so we see here that we can play around with all of the options here and make our graph more or less presentable. And before I exit here, I'm going to hit File, and I can export the chart. I can save the chart as a template or apply another chart that I had saved as a template. So I'm just going to close this window here. Now it disappeared, but if I go back to Graphs, Line, Simple, Define, and just hit OK, it'll produce a second graph, but I can go back to my first graph. If I click this once and I hit the right mouse button, this allows me to copy the entire graph, and I can paste it into a Word document or even an Excel file if I so wish as an image. So this ends our lecture on how to make a line graph with SPSS.